Welcome to the XR Magazine podcast. I'm your host, Diana Olenik, and on this show, we dive into the cutting edge worlds of XR, Web3, and artificial intelligence with the brightest minds in the industry, bringing you exclusive insights and game changing conversations that will revolutionize your understanding of the future. Today, we're speaking with Brave Williams, who is the founding director of the IEX Center at Husson University. He's an associate professor and leads curriculum development for one of the first exclusively XR Bachelor of Science degrees. So, the IEX Center is an innovation hub that develops solutions using extended reality experiences such as virtual and augmented reality. Through the IEX Center, students learn how to solve real world problems using the advanced technology associated with the emerging XR field. These immersive and interactive experiences are developed with the involvement of students and faculty within the School of Technology and Innovation, as well as those from other colleges across campus as they work together on interdisciplinary XR projects. Thank you so much, Bray, for being here today. We're super excited to have you in the podcast.
Thank you.
Please let us know how are you doing today, and maybe later you can transition on to what's your background.
Yeah, doing well. I live and work in Bangor, Maine, where I teach at a university. And yeah, we're in our summer season and not yet started up for our classes yet. So it's been a good summer here in Maine, mostly.
Yes, that sounds super exciting. I think that right now, I mean, there is a lot of enthusiasm for XR technologies, and the education field is actually seeing this part of this enthusiasm, and more people is wanting to learn even from their own bachelors, from their own specialties, how to incorporate these type of technologies in their work. I wonder if you can let us know a little bit about your work as a professor, everything that is happening at the university, anything that you want to expand from there, because this is always valuable for anyone who wants to learn XR.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for taking a minute to chat with me about this. It's a pretty exciting time, I would say, in education for XR. There's just so much opportunity and whatnot, and as I mentioned, I teach in Bangor, Maine, and my background is actually in theater. So I've got an undergraduate degree and a master's MFA in theater set design, and it's a neat field because it brings together so many different areas of study. It brings together coding and design and user experience and whatnot. But it's really exciting different platform. And the university that I teach at, it's a small university, about 3,000 students. It's been here for about 125 years, and we have a background in business and healthcare and pharmacy and communications and among other things. And it's a very affordable school, but it's also a school that has worked to really identify certain professional areas that need advancing and to push fields forward. So the school has been really extremely supportive of the work I do. And back about in 2016, actually, we got a $1 million donation from an individual that really wanted to see communications and technology related to different emerging communications field explored. And so, starting with that seed money, we've since had some other grant funding and whatnot, but we were able to start the IX Center. We call it the IX Center. It's an XR research center, and it's actually housed within the School of Business, and then part of the School of Technology and Innovation. And those monies and the commitment from the university really helped us to do something which we think is quite unique, because what we have is I'll sort of get into this a little bit more, but as a quick overview, what we have is we have a research facility, and then we have a bachelor's degree, which is focused on extended reality. So what you see at a lot of other places is that XR shows up. It may show up in computer science. It may show up in communications. It may show up, maybe there's some motion capture element that's in, filmmaking. And there are these aspects of spatial computing that show up in different areas. And what we realized is that in order to push this field forward, it is ready to have its own focus, to have its own lab, to have its own bachelor's of science degree, and to have a team that's focused specifically on this technology. And so we think in a lot of ways, certainly in Maine, there's nobody else that is as focused as we are. And as I go around the country and talk to people, I don't often see that that people are as focused. And I'll sort of describe what I mean by that level of focus as well. But yeah, that's a little bit of a quick background on what we are and what we do.
Wow, yeah, that sounds amazing. I think that the idea of having a bachelor's and all the additional tools, all the additional independent study, independent field is what somehow we've been looking for, because I see many people looking for, where can I study this? Where can I become specialized in this? And there hasn't been many maybe organizations that have moved towards the actual independent field of study, but I think that this is the place where we could actually get the complete panorama and
Mm.
tools and education when it's a bachelor's. I said previously, if I were younger, this is the bachelor's that I would take.
Yeah.
It just, by the time that I took engineering many years ago, this didn't even exist. So it
Mhm.
was not around as a formal field of education, independent field of
Yeah.
education.
Well, one of the things that's really challenging. Obviously, the technology is developing, and it's developing in a variety of different fields. But one of the reasons as you say, you don't see that as much is because it's actually a really challenging field to study, to work with, because it pulls together so many different aspects. I mean, I kind of call it like almost an art form. It's just this scientific and technological art form, and it's complex. And so you've got all these different factors that are basically working together, and under this umbrella of, we like to say it as like it's extended reality, but it's mobile AR, it's VR goggles, it's AR glasses, and then it's also these immersive environments, these AR environments, which I can talk a little bit more about, but they're this non-wearable environment. And it is challenging to bring together all these different technologies which are developing on their own courses.
Mhm.
And so one of the things we did early on, actually, one of the most uh, uh, impactful things is I went to a conference. I can talk more about this, but I went to a conference and learned about Ron Azuma's work. He gave a framework which basically said that it was an AR framework, and he said AR is it is something that is registered in real time. It's registered in 3D space. It's interactive in real time, and it's this combination of real and virtual. So we sort of put that together with this idea that, okay, this is a new medium, and this is and when we apply this XR test to it, if you will, and that's one of our emphasis, is that we apply this XR test. And then the other thing we do is we look at beyond that, if it's wearable or non-wearable, because this area of non-wearable doesn't get as much attention, but it's really powerful. So you have the ability to have projected media and have interactive projected media. You don't need anybody to wear anything, and they can come along and they can see it, they can interact with it, and there's a lot of different, even tactile things you can do in an interactive way, or some, I should say, and at least we're pushing towards that. But that's a really complex area, because now you have this projected media or walls or interactive walls, and the goal is, the challenge is to have them not even hold anything, not have them hold an iPad or hold anything. So you have this whole area of non-wearable. So now you get into like entertainment and immersive environments. And that's when I worked in theater. Part of my background, I started working in those things before I got to this area, and that's a whole complex area. And so it is really challenging to bring together all these different fields, if you will, into this new spatial computing, extended reality environment. And so, yeah, it's just a it's a tough challenge, and it's new. It's this nascent technology. So that's I think one of the reasons you don't see it as much.
Yeah, yeah, thank you so much. So, from an academic perspective, what are some of the biggest challenges in teaching this type of technology? Just you mentioned is new. What have been your experience?
Yeah. So we have it is the diversity of the technology. That's one of the things. And so we have an immersive room that has a spatial audio, or they like to call it immersive audio system, which is a non-wearable immersive audio system which can track sounds and allow people to interact with sounds. So you can have an object that's standing in free space that's it's a can or a bottle or something like that. And then what you can do is you can create interactivity so that when you touch it, it bongs or bings or makes a cat sound or does something, But it's not a wearable situation. So the motions are tracked. There's nothing that they're wearing. And then it's actually a Meyer Space Map Go system, and it allows it to geolocate sounds in three-dimensional space. But we also use that room for tracking people for in mocap kind of an environment. We also use it for they call it in-camera VFX, and these are the kind of things that productions are using where they're filming in this environment. Instead of a green screen, it's actually an LED wall. And so we have an environment like that. Sometimes they call it a volume or something like that. Mandalorian's probably one of the more well-known. I've heard they use upward of 80% of their filming in a volume type environment. Now, what's the universal there is that it's run by a game engine. It's run by Unreal, and so we work with filmmaking students in our communications school down over the hill, and so and then on Tuesday maybe we're working with them, and then maybe on Thursday we're working with somebody from one of the science medical degrees, nursing. We've worked with people in nursing, and we're trying to figure out how we can put them in a virtual reality environment to be able to reduce medication errors or something like that. And so so what happens is we have all this equipment. We have headsets and haptic gloves and all these different kind of equipment. So, and it's not stable sometimes. So stuff is breaking down, or maybe the UI isn't good. So we have all these different types of equipment and whatever. And the fundamental principles are all there. It's extended reality. It's registered in 3D space. It's interactive in real time, and it's a combination of real and virtual. It's XR. It's spatial computing. But it goes in so many different directions. So sometimes we feel, you can certainly feel overwhelmed by, having $1 million worth of more equipment that's being, used by people and breaking and firmware updates. And so, I understand why, I understand some of the challenges, but for us, it's all XR. If it fits our XR test, then it's XR. And we move forward within that framework, and we're creating and developing that art form.
Yeah, wow. I just by mentioning all of these access that you have to all of these other faculties and all of these, real projects or things that are happening is a lot of enrichment, because this is when we're learning alone. These are the type of things that we don't have. We don't have access to that type of lab, and we don't have access to real cases where we can test what we are
Yeah.
doing and learn by making, the real
Yeah.
making, just not the theory. So I think that is amazing, the work of the lab. Where do you see it going? Where do you see the evolution of all of these, and including the technology? What excites you about the future?
Yeah. Um, well, I just want to comment first on what you said, which is this environment for experimenting with things. So what we did is we came up with this Venn diagram. We have this Venn diagram that's sort of one of our guiding principles, and it has three elements, in a Venn diagram, and it has an XR program. That's our Bachelor's of Science XR program. And then it has the IX Center, which is our research facility. But then the third part of the Venn diagram is these community projects and outreach. And, it sort of started as like this thing that we do to get our name out. So people know about us and whatnot. But what happened was we realized that, we knew that we always wanted to help the community. We wanted to help the community understand XR. We wanted folks in Maine to understand it. We wanted our resource to our university to help our professors understand XR. And we knew it was sort of a testing ground, but it's hard to describe how much we have learned from that community. We apply things, we do things, we go to science festivals, we go to schools, we work on projects with professors, and we're amazed at how much we learn about, oh, this is not ready for prime time, or, oh, we've got to tweak this, or, we've got these persistent problems or something like that. And so it's really exciting to see. This is one of the things that we really have learned a lot from. So you're absolutely right. When you look at that within an environment of moving forward and having access to these things, it's really great. But it's that community that gives us feedback. It's those projects and the real people who are applying this, and we do something, we think this is the best thing ever, and they say, well, I couldn't get the headset on because it was such and such, and we're like, oh no, it's such a simple thing, and we could so sometimes it comes back to these really simple things, just about fitting and some interactions or whatnot. We think we've done this amazing thing, and we have some simple problem or something like that. So that's really where a lot of the important discoveries have been, and some of the most simple kind of discoveries and whatnot. So I think, to answer your question, I think moving forward, it's going to sound kind of mundane, but we have this saying that's a tagline that we use quite often, which is creating seamless extended reality for everyone. And the idea of it being seamless sometimes may be just that you can take a screen capture in your VR headset and send it to somebody really easily. And we've noticed in a lot of different platforms and whatnot, some of the things like this are that seem sort of simple, that should be a digital, should just be this simple digital exchange, are very, very difficult. Or casting, so that other people in the room can see what you see. Casting has been really unstable for us in a lot of different headsets and whatnot. And that's fundamental. If you've got somebody we do these, immersive training environments we work with hospitality management here at Husson, and we're creating an environment for them so they can do hospitality training. And, if we can't cast, and we got a teacher and a student, and the teacher is taking the student through this environment and talking about, this is how you do these certain functions within the restaurant, and this is what you do. Well, if you just have the teacher and then the student who's in the headset, and the teacher can't see what the student sees in order to talk to the rest of the class in this scenario, the whole thing breaks down. And I can't tell you how many times the casting is an issue. So you got this, this great sort of synergistic learning environment, and the casting doesn't work. So it's going to sound really mundane, but where does it go for the future? It's this stability in all these areas, so that it's seamless extended reality for everyone, so that everybody can engage with it, and you can expand that, to everybody in the world and whatnot. So it sounds really simple, but these are the kind of things that we often struggle with.
Yeah, I think that's a nuance, very, very important to highlight. I didn't think specifically about that one before, but now that you mention it, there are certain things that are now we take it for granted of how it happens in media, the normal media that we use. Trying to create these type of seamless or the same experiences in other media become sometimes the challenge. Things that are seem to be super simple sometimes become the complexity in other media. And I think that until those type of things are not figured out with, as you mentioned, also the capability of the computing, the hardware, all of these things, until they get also evolved as well, we might start to see this. So it is not just about what is the next thing, but how can we do the things with what we have now of good quality. So
Hmm.
I see the point. It's such a good insight. I think that is a great teaching. Of course, you're a professor. um,
Thanks.
for people that is building at this time or trying to figure out things.
Hmm.
And not everybody, as you know, have access to this type of education.
Yeah.
That's the reality. There are many countries in the world that they don't even sometimes even access certain geographically located areas, don't even have access to internet.
Hmm.
So my
Yeah.
question would be, it seems in Husson University there is not just a bachelor's degree. There are other options as well for people who want to integrate it once they are professionals like me. How does it work? How comparable is with the bachelor's, the differences? What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, we actually have we are in year number. We're actually starting year number 3. So this is we, even though we started in 2016, um, when we got our funding, we started the program in the fall of 2021. We
Mm,
currently have 15 people in the program, and we've got about 150 students that are sort of using our resources, taking we have a fundamentals class called XR 177,
ah,
and students take that class. And we think we'll have about 60 students in the program. But to answer your question, it it's developing resources. It's developing relationships with companies. It's We don't yet have a master's degree. We're just starting with the
mhm,
bachelor's. We want to focus there. We want to have a really good foundation before we go into master's work. Um, and so we're part of the School of Technology and Innovation. So we have we have the benefit of course, the coding side is really important. The game engine side is really important. And we're leveraging our work with the School of Communications, which is at Husson, which is it's a really a nationally known communications school focusing in audio engineering and television production, film production, and those types of things. So we work with those teams and those students and whatnot. They come up and work with our virtual production lab. So we're not filmmakers, but we're XR specialists. So we work with the game engines and we work with the environment, and our students work with their students, and they come and bring their filmmaking skills. And we think
mhm,
that's the model going forward, is that you're an
mhm,
XR specialist and you understand all the areas of XR, at least in some regard. And I actually stole this from the communications school, but they use this thing, which is jack of all trades, master of one, instead of jack of all
mhm,
trades, master of one, none. So the idea is that you understand all the fundamental principles of XR, but maybe you're a coder in XR, or maybe you're a designer in XR, or
mhm,
maybe you work with the hardware and you're going to work with some school system or some business to onboard and implement systems and whatnot. So we've got a lot of expanding resources and whatnot, but those relationships with businesses and we've had a lot of people knocking on our door, because when they hear about the fact that we have this, people from even different states. There's a XR facility down in New Hampshire that has said, not many people do this, so we want to work with you. So there are a lot of resources that we have. And but we are certainly growing, and just sort of getting into this.
mhm. Yeah, that sounds super exciting. I think that we're starting. We're starting now.
Yeah.
It was a certain number of years that you began, but we're actually starting now. So there is a lot to still do. And there are many things in the process that get brought into the world in many amazing ways. I like to know what are some of those, maybe one or two of projects that you were, wow, you were surprised of things that people were building that came out of the XR program. What have been some examples, or what sparked
Yeah.
your yeah, your admiration?
Yeah. That's a great question. You know, I really had one way that I really had a neat experience, I think, with a student and actually his family. So his mother works for a global food production company. She's actually the global XR manager for the company, and she's been trying to implement in. She's been working to implement in XR um, into the company in various different procedures and processes and whatnot, on the repair side of equipment. And they make these big giant production machines for like potato chip
Mhm.
bags and stuff like that. So he was in my class. He's a first year student last fall, and he had a VR project that he wanted to do. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I think it was like a tour, sort of you could look at a Airbnb or something like that beforehand. And we started talking about it. And he said, you know, I've got this 3D scan. I'm doing a scan of it, and then I'm going to put these waypoints in it, and whatnot. And you know, I started talking about it. I said, well, what's the difference? What's the we have this. I'll back up a second. We have an analysis thing that we do with students, and what they have to do basically is within our lab, we we want to make sure that we have equipment that basically is a piece of equipment for every sense, sort of some sort of stimuli, if you will, for every sense. So it would be the visual, it'd be audio, interactive audio, but we also want to do wearable and non-wearable. We want to, you know, have immersive touch, haptic controllers, you know, motion capture, even interactive immersive taste and smell, and all these kind of things, right? And so what we do and I'll get to the answer to this. What we do is we have them analyze, okay, what is the real situation that you're engaged with, and then what is it you're trying to virtualize? You know, what is that experience that you're trying to virtualize? And within that experience that you're trying to virtualize, what are the interactive visual qualities? What are the auditory qualities? What are the smells and the touches and the sensations? And what are the real things? The movement aspect, the gravitational aspects, um, and so I asked him. I said, what if you were going to, so he wanted to make a tour of an Airbnb so you could sort of like be there, but he was doing it in VR, and so he had a visual scan. I said, well, what would it be like if you were actually there? You know, let's do this analysis, like continue to do your analysis. And so I just said, you know, list these things that would be there if you were really actually touring an Airbnb and you were physically there. And he said, well, you know, I'd hear some things. Okay, good. You'd hear some things. I'd see some things out the window. That's right. Okay. You'd see some movement outside the window. You'd see what time of day it is and these kind of things. And so he created this thing in like Hubs or Spoke, the Mozilla product,
Yeah,
and
okay.
yeah, it's a great product. And he's a first year student, and then he created it wasn't a live feed, but he created a feed so that you could go in there and you could look out the window. And so the idea is he was prototyping it. You know, it wasn't an actual camera feed from it. And I was like, yeah, that's perfect. That's excellent, because what you now have is you're touring. That's at least one element that is a real time element that is coming in a feed. So you're touring that, but you're seeing like, oh, is there a lot of traffic on this road? So you actually have a video feed. So even though it's a scan that's locked into space, that's stale. And so he took that idea and thought that was great and everything. And then in the spring, he decided to he came to me with this project. He said, I'm working with my mom on this project, and she's got a trade show in Germany, and her responsibility is to create this immersive environment of the production line, and you know, all these kind of things. And I was like, okay. And I started talking to him about it, and he ended up doing it. And he created this kind of environment with, along with his mom, and then also another company that did a lot of the artwork and whatnot, where attendees would come up, they would see this LED wall, and they tested it in our facility because we had an LED wall. They would walk up to it, and they would see the visual of a sort of the entrance to a production facility. They would put on the headset. They would walk into the production facility. They would walk all around. Then they would go to walk out of the production facility, and they would see themselves there and the rest of the audience there, and they sort of re-inhabit their bodies, if you will.
Wow.
And
Awesome.
so it was neat to see that he took this.
Mhm.
And so, well, and I asked him, I said, oh wow, this is a great idea, where'd you get the idea? He said, well, when we were talking about connecting real and virtual, I was trying to figure out how to connect the real and virtual. So I didn't go over to Germany or whatever, but I did try the test of it, and
Mhm.
I mean, it had some issues.
Mhm.
There were some elements that maybe didn't quite work when you're re-inhabiting your body and whatever else. But I thought that's perfect, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to make a connection between that real and virtual, and use the
Mhm.
plus and the benefits of all of those. So I thought that was a really neat project that he was able to apply to a real life situation in conjunction with his where his mom works.
Absolutely. I was gonna highlight how beautiful that it was working with his mom, right?
Yes.
It says, yeah, it's so unusual because it was a coincidence that she's also in the field, but it's like it stays in family and together. I can picture everything. Like there is an emotional connection as well in the story. So I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That's so great. There are so many ways where things can be created in unexpected ways always, yeah, for sure. So what like people right now, professionals from any type of field, are wondering sometimes about what is that XR thing. What would you say to professionals that have, when they just didn't finish high school, they went through another degree or something, and now they want to understand how to bring that technology? What advice do you give them when they already have a career? What do you have to say there for them if they are wondering, starting to wonder about XR? What recommendations, advice, or anything you have to say in that case?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I would probably say a lot of similar things that other people would say, with regard to the more we try and experiment with different technologies. I think it's absolutely critical for people to um, it's absolutely critical for people to get a good background in sort of the holistic idea of what XR is, and have a good vocabulary for what XR is and what it does. Um, uh, my sort of my aha moment was for within XR was I tried XR when we started in 2016, when we started working with it, and but then I went to a augmented reality World Expo in the spring of 2017, and there was like a 2-day seminar there that they had presented, and it was on a book called Augmented Reality Principles and Practice, and the class was taught by Dieter Smallsteg and Tobias Hollander, and they kind of gave a really full view of it, of what XR was. And that's where I actually learned about Ron Azuma's sort of XR test. And I would say getting a book and understanding the holistic kind of thing, for me, that was really the aha moment, because what happened was I thought it was sort of a little gimmicky at first. Um, but what I realized is it's this powerful tool, and it's a powerful new way of computing, and there are things that you can do in this immersive computing environment that just weren't possible with computers before. And and that when I realized it's not a gimmick, it has staying power, I started to be able to see, oh, I see the theme here. I see how this tool works. I see how the contextualization is, it's you don't have a finger on a mouse that's, up on a screen. You're actually touching the thing. And when I
Mhm.
realized all those powerful elements of XR, I realized, okay, this has staying power. It is not a gimmick. And then I think the next step for somebody who's looking at it, I think first is understanding what it really is and what it's really good at, because there's so much hype out there. There's so many things that you can see and do. And that's why we do the XR test. We do the XR test to say, yeah, this is cool, but this is not XR. This is not in the powerful structure of XR, where you can grab a hold of things in immersive space, you can interact with them, and you have those technologies. So I would say the first thing is sort of understanding that, and that book, Augmented Reality Principles and Practice, is great. There's a lot of other books as well. Um, I teach with one which is blanking on the name, but maybe put it in the notes there. And then the next thing I think is figuring out, okay, within this area, what is the area that I kind of want to focus on? Um, and there are a lot of sort of fancy bits of equipment and things like that. But if you have that area of focus that you're looking at, is it the coding side, is it the design side, is it the systems and hardware and those kind of things? Is it even on the marketing side or something like that? And then getting some of the key skills. I mean, game engines are absolutely critical. I'm sure everybody would agree, something like Unity or whatever, beginning to get an understanding of Unity and working with Unity. I think something like 80% of the headsets are use Unity. But if it's on the production side, Unreal has showed itself to be a leader there. So getting some of those core sort of foot in the door skills, like, okay, I've got a skill set and I can use this and I can go to work for a place, or I can, even if you say, if you're just applying it, I can apply this to my marketing because I know how to use this tool, or getting somebody else who knows how to use the tool or something like that. So yeah, that would be sort of the idea I would suggest, is getting the basic framework, understanding what it's good at, understanding what it really is, and then getting some of the tools to be able to do some stuff and experiment with it, and make some stuff and see what happens. Because that's really where the hype wears off, is where you go and make something and you're like, oh, this is cool, or oh, this is harder than I thought.
Mhm. Yes, yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. Because the reason why I asked that question is because you yourself have been through that. Your
Yeah,
background, your
yeah,
traditional background, and then you had to transition. Like
yeah.
you had to know, how can I integrate this into my, theater, into. So you went through that journey. So that's why I asked you. But thank you so much. It's been so brilliant. It's always so exciting to hear from experts like you, and you're a leader in education. So we're so grateful. And I think that we can continue, of course, we could even continue with this conversation. But the reality is that the technology is always evolving, and there is always something new that we have to learn. So the education process is always ongoing.
Yeah.
And especially in this field, it's very important to update ourselves and know what's going on. Because in the future, all the traditional careers might have to do something to do with the technology, as sometimes, like there are many things that have to do with this device, for example. And in terms of communication, that might be potentially the case for many professions. So we are doing a job here in trying to educate people and helping the community who is willing to put the effort, and is excited or is curious about the field. So, is there anything else that you wish I had asked you today, Bray?
Um, no, I think we covered a lot of the things. I guess I would just say in summary that XR is kind of its own certain thing, um, and it is its own powerful tool, and people use it in very different ways, but it's still XR. In our minds, at least, as long as as long as it sort of fits within this idea of this immersive, interactive, three-dimensional combination of real and virtual, and just kind of figuring out where the power is of that. And I would say, it's not a gimmick. It really is not a gimmick. And um, even though I would say, sort of closing thoughts, even though if you've tried it and you thought it was gimmicky, I would try the next iteration of that technology. And you may realize that, oh, you wrote it off too soon, because I really think it has staying power, and I think it has longevity, and I think it's as evidenced by a lot of people working on it. But there's going to be be things that work and don't work, but it's definitely here to stay in my mind, and I think that's exciting, and that's something that you can hang your hat on as far as a career, or an art form, or whatever you decide to do with it. And I'm just excited to see what the community is going to do with it, and I'm grateful to be part of this community, and I appreciate you taking some time to chat with us today.
Oh, this is super exciting. Thank you so much. Cannot express enough the gratitude because, of course, it's your time and you're opening up to share all of these great insights directly from the academia and your experiences and all the projects that you've been working on. This is amazing and it's so valuable. Please, anybody who is listening or watching this podcast, consider sharing this with one of your family or friends that you consider would have a lot of value as well. This has been a very, very exciting journey today, speaking with Brave from Husson University. And yeah, if you have any comments or any questions, please let us know. In the meantime, you can begin following Brave or maybe reaching out to the university if you have any questions about the programs that are available for anybody to begin learning the exciting world of XR. Thank you so much and see you in the next episode. Bye for now.